welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Scott Powell, President and Chief Executive Officer of Skyline Corporate Communications Group, LLC. On behalf of OTC Markets and Skyline Corporate Communications Group, we are very pleased that you have joined us for the Small Cap Growth Conference today. The next presentation is from Syntholene Energy Corp. Please note that you may submit questions for the presenter at any time. You may also view a company's availability for one-to-one meetings by clicking Book a Meeting. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome Mr. Dan Sutton, Chief Executive Officer of Syntholene Energy Corp., which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the trading symbol SYNTF, and trades on the TSXV under the symbol ESAF. Welcome back, Dan.
Thanks so much, Scott. Great to be here and really excited to speak to your audience today. I am Dan Sutton. I'm the CEO of Syntholene, and we make synthetic jet fuel. Synthetic jet fuel is drop-in substitutable for fossil-based jet fuel without the need for crude oil or biological feedstocks. Synthetic fuel is new to many investors, but it's actually been around a long time, close to about 100 years. It's just never been cost competitive with fossil fuels until now. Syntholene is actively scaling up our novel production process for this fuel. It's engineered to produce it cost competitively with fossil fuels for the first time. This process was successfully demonstrated at prototype scale in 2022, and we're now nearing completion on the world's first field demonstration facility of this process, targeting first operations at the end of this month. Now, I believe that the time has never been more urgent to deliver a cost-effective substitute for petroleum-based fuels, and we are on a mission to deliver this in the first scalable, high-performance way. I don't know about you guys, I've never seen headlines like this, inventory levels at critical lows. We see a lot of different headlines. Things are going to be fine. Things are not going to be fine. We're going to run out of oil. We're going to run out of gas at the pumps, or everything's going to turn out okay. But inevitably, we're seeing a different risk profile than we're used to for crude oil supply chains. And we're going to start to see that impact on our pocketbooks. Everything we enjoy is brought to us by cheap, abundant petroleum products. Every grocery you buy, every good and service you consume is shipped to you, is moved by diesel fuel in trucks. And so we really need an abundant and consistent supply of petroleum. And regardless of what happens in this current conflict, I think it's important to recognize there's no real hedge. There's no other substitute product that has the same energy densities and transportability, logistics infrastructure as oil-based products, and Syntholene is in the business of diversifying that mix. And I like to look at this map, which is ultimately a view of global oil reserves as we understand them today, and looking around at the countries that we rely on to be able to consume cheap and abundant oil, gas, gasoline, diesel, kerosene for jet fuel, and also ethylenes for plastic, all the different petroleum products that really underpin every technology and luxury of our current civilization and our lifestyle. I sort of look around at this and I say, well, where are the places with great political stability or bankable political stability over the course of the next 100 years? And this is part of the mission for Syntholene, is that we want to produce a higher quality, lower cost, and clean variant of the end fuel products that we rely on for crude oil. And we want to do it in the United States. We want to do it in politically stable countries in Europe, countries that share our democratic ideals. A lot of these regions are autocratic. Some of them are dictatorships. And I wonder what the risk premium is going to look like going forward. It's certainly not going to be zero. We have to acknowledge the political risk of supply chain interruption from so many of these regions. And Syntholene hopes to be part of the solution to that issue. Synthetic fuel is the only scalable alternative. We've tried a lot with biofuels. They've done some amazing work in the context of chemistry and evolving their supply chains. But biofuels have one fatal flaw, and that is there's just not enough feedstocks. If we could collect all of the waste food oil in the world, we still couldn't meaningfully substitute more than 1% of total fossil fuel consumption. So we need something else. And the feedstocks for synthetic fuel are ultimately just water, carbon, and energy. Now, we do need a lot of energy, and we need cheap energy, and that's one of the problems that Syntholene is here to solve. But when we do solve it, synthetic fuel is actually a superior quality product. It doesn't have any of the adulterants that are inherent in the fossil fuel refinement process, such as copper and cadmium and lead, and that leads to higher energy densities by weight. And those adulterants, they are inherent in the way that we process fossil fuels. You can't clean them out economically. The difference with synthetic fuel is instead of refining down from a crude feedstock, we actually build the molecule from the ground up. So we're left with a molecularly pure output. Once again, this is well understood. It's well qualified. There's been lots of study on this fuel for many, many decades. And it is drop-in substitutable. We don't need any modifications to engines, motors, or turbines. We can use the same tankers. We can use the same pipelines. And so we really see synthetic fuel as the solution to be able to continue to leverage the fantastic fossil-based infrastructure that we have today, but do it without a lot of the negative externalities associated with consuming crude oil. You probably use synthetic petroleum products today. Synthetic motor oil has a 60-year operating track record. We all know it to be a superior quality product. You use it because it is molecularly pure. It extends the lifespan of your motors. It has a higher operating standard. It can handle better or more tough conditions on your engine. And so we really just do synthetic motor oil except for fuel. And this technology that we're building today is the first pathway to be able to make it cost competitively. Simply put, to recap, we're in the business of producing a higher performance fuel. This fuel happens to be carbon neutral. We capture carbon from point source emissions or directly from the air and ocean in the future. It's drop-in substitutable, and we want to do it cost competitively with fossil fuel for the first time. This sounds radical. I appreciate a lot of people hear this and they say, sounds amazing, maybe a bit too good to be true. I shared your skepticism when I first joined this company and built on the back of an amazing engineering project. But these claims are really not controversial. They've been well studied and well understood. So higher fuel purity, this is validated in the academic literature. They have higher cetane number for all you oil and gas nerds, low content of aromatics, no sulfur, nitrogen, heavy metals. These are all adulterants that impede engine performance when you use fossil-based or bio-based fuels that have these adulterants in them. The performance is well understood to have those higher energy densities that come from the molecular purity. So even if climate change is not a big priority and carbon neutrality is not, of interest to you, this is a superior quality fuel. If you don't care at all about those externalities, it's still a better fuel to use. And lower cost than fossil is achievable. Large scale production of synthetic jet at $80 a barrel. This is academic and modeled. It's been demonstrated at lab scale, and now it's incumbent upon companies like Syntholene to be able to take it into the field, demonstrate that it works in real world operating environments. And that's exactly what we're on track to do in just the next month. So this is the beautiful SOEC lab at Idaho National Laboratory. They started this work sort of on the early 2010s in a lab context, did more testing and commercialization of this key piece of technology that enables this low-cost fuel production. It's called the Solid Oxide Electrolyzer Cell, SOEC, and they built it out. They showed that it worked. They showed the efficient use of electricity and also heat to be able to operate these systems and produce hydrogen and then synthetic fuel at radically lower costs. So this has been substantially validated. The data has been published. It's actually widely available. You can find it online. And when they published it, I think everyone anticipated a bit more fanfare. But as so many of these things do, they can run the risk of getting stuck in the lab. And so Syntholene contributed to this project. Our chief engineer sort of worked alongside the Idaho National Lab, and he came to me and to other partners that are more in the business of project development and scaling these kinds of technologies and infrastructure. And we are setting out to build it in the real world. And we are doing it in beautiful Husavik, Iceland. We've got lots of aspirations to build infrastructure in the EU, in the USA. But we wanted to start out at a place where we had this unique combination of exceptionally low cost geothermal energy, really, really blessed by Iceland's massive endowment of shallow and hot geothermal that not only produces low cost industrial electricity, but it produces it in a way that's consistently available. It's base load, so it has a very low intermittency factor. Intermittency is a real problem with trying to run industrial equipment off of renewable energy like wind and solar. Wind and solar are only on sort of a quarter or a third of the time. So unless you pair them with exceptionally expensive, massive battery infrastructure, they don't quite serve the needs of industrial process heat, or they're not effective substitutes for industrial process heat. And geothermal inherently does solve that problem. As long as you've got the right qualities in your well and in your infrastructure, you can produce energy really consistently, 24/7, 365. And the fact that it's co-located with heat, the steam comes out of the ground, we use it to spin a turbine, but then we also get this amazing waste heat. And for industrial processes like fuel synthesis, waste heat is a very valuable commodity. So we use both the energy and the heat. Northern Iceland is an amazing place for geothermal. It's also a fantastic place for industrial scale operations. There's lots of regional energy infrastructure, multiple power plants, transmission lines. There's a deep water port right adjacent to the site. You can see in that bay, the port's just up the bay a little bit. And the workforce is well trained to be able to operate this kind of infrastructure. They've got fantastic silica operations, they've got deep water fisheries, and they also are getting ahead of major grid expansion initiatives. So this is something unique to Northern Iceland. I haven't heard about this from other Western nations, but Iceland actually has already permitted through environmental permitting a 200 megawatt grid expansion. So they've done all the testing and demonstrated that they can do it with low environmental impact. And as Syntholene aspires to scale up beyond just demonstration and into commercial scale operations, having the backing of that environmental permitting in hand already is a huge advantage that can take many years. So really excited to be driving forward in Iceland with technology that we can prove there and then bring back to the USA, bring to other geothermally active nations, feasibly coupled to nuclear power plants in the future. That's a really exciting prospect as we see this nuclear renaissance emerging in the US and around the world. And so we need heat, we need electricity, and geothermal in Iceland and in other regions is a great place to start. We've just completed the electrolyzer module. This is kind of the core guts of our system. It's actually en route to Iceland as we speak, which is amazing. And we built our systems in a modular way in different places. This was built in Denmark. We built our other core piece of IP in California at LAX. And then we moved them to our site in Iceland, which we're hoping to have operational at the end of this month. This nameplate is the most efficient electrolyzer on Earth, as I understand it. That's what our colleagues and vendors claim. And so it is also capable of using that heat as a core energy input, which net reduces the amount of electricity that we need. Electrolysis is a really key component in the synthetic fuel supply chain. And if you can do electrolysis efficiently and do it with cheap electricity, these are kind of the core unlocks that allow for the synthetic fuel pathway cost competitive with fossil fuels. This is our core IP. We call it the thermal coupling. It essentially allows us to accept enthalpic geothermal steam. That steam is entrained with adulterants like silica, phosphates, sulfur, and we clean up the steam and then we turn it into hyper pure industrial steam, which is useful as an energy input to the electrolysis process and other components of the supply chain. We do have a provisional patent on this. And this for us is the key bottleneck that unlocks our ability to do this process about 70% cheaper than any other competitor that we're aware of today. So that is IP protected. We have other IP as well that is more integration IP and IP around how we assemble and combine the component parts and use heat through them efficiently. My engineers are very stingy with our BTUs. We want to be hyper efficient. Anytime you're going to be a low cost producer, efficiency is the name of the game. And really lucky to be working with an engineering team that's been at this for well over a decade. So we think a lot about how to not just deliver these step change advances, but then continue to iterate the efficiencies as we go. The purpose of the demo facility really is to validate that we can integrate thermally. We want to use heat and electricity, as I stated, and that really is key to being able to deliver our cost competition with fossil fuels. Show that the process efficiency works in the same way that it did in the lab environment. Candidly, if we even get close to where we were at the SOEC lab at INL, we're well in the ballpark of where we need to be in terms of cost. It's feasible that we might even outperform those lab-based studies because they used technology that was built a few years ago, half a decade ago. And really scalability. When we think about commercializing this process beyond demo, our first 20,000 ton per year facility footprint is well designed. But then how do we get to millions of barrels really comes back to the unit economics. We got to show that we can build this stuff in a modular fashion, but if it can achieve these cost competitive dynamics, then that puts us head and shoulders above our peers and allows us to say, look, we can do this at a small scale. We can do it at a first commercial instance and do that profitably. Now all we need to do is twin those facilities, 5x them, 10x them, and complex construction projects are often unpleasant, and there's lots of risk profile in the context of construction and deployment risk, but those are tractable risks. These are known knowns, known unknowns, and it's not science and technology risk. So this really will be the first validation of cost competitive unit economics with fossil fuel, and we're really excited to turn it on at the end of this month and then run our testing protocol, effects testing, 1,000, 2,000 hours worth of campaign work so that we can get that end data, validate it with third parties. So you're not just hearing from us, you're hearing from large EPCs and specialists in understanding the techno-economics and the efficiencies of these kinds of systems. And we hope to have that data ready for publication feasibly towards the end of the year. The site that we're at in Iceland, you'll say why Iceland and why so far in the north? Once again, very cheap geothermal, very abundant geothermal, a political desire for more and more industrial consumption of electricity and investment from firms like ourselves. And we've got a lot of geothermal. Really hard to overstate how much potential capacity there is. It's one of the most geothermally active regions in the world. So we believe we can scale to about 500 million of very margin intensive revenue, reasonably high profitability at just this one site. It's not the only site. We're really excited to be looking various places in the United States, other places around the world. And this can work anywhere there is shallow and hot geothermal, as well as in the future being paired to nuclear power plants that also produce high temperature steam. We have had an early validation from Robert Rapier. He spent a 30-year career analyzing refineries and other alternative fuel infrastructure, and he's branded himself and been branded as an energy skeptic. He actually did due diligence on 14 different biofuel facilities for a family office and passed on every single one of them. So he was presented to me kind of as the ultimate skeptic on this kind of technology. And we passed his validation. He got deep into our engineering and diligence folders and believes that Syntholene offers both near-term milestones and long-term growth potential and is actually one of 100 that he likes that can actually do this stuff cost competitively and reduce the negative externalities of not just fossil fuel, but also biofuels as well. And we do have an executed expression of interest from Icelandair. This is a non-binding agreement, but they have identified their demand for 25 million liters per year over 10 years. This is kind of our anchor customer. We like them because they're in Iceland, so it reduces our transportation and logistics complexity. But we're in lots of airline discussions. Our other customers could look like fuel traders and oil and gas companies themselves. And there's sort of a substantial shortage of this fuel, not just jet fuel, but synthetic jet fuel, which is mandated for consumption across many European economies, the UK, and also in Asia. So it's a seller's market for the foreseeable future. Really hard to scale the infrastructure for our peers who are producing this fuel many multiples more expensive than fossil fuels. So needless to say, being able to deliver a cost-effective substitute for fossil-based jet fuel that is higher performance and cheaper really is the holy grail. It's a big mission, but we think the technology risk is low and the execution risk is incumbent upon us to deliver. I always come back to this. At the end of the day, even if we're trading a specialty commodity or a premium commodity, commodity markets don't lie. The highest quality fuel at the lowest possible price was actually the brand mandate from Standard Oil. So that's the business that we're in. And we can't wait to be deploying more and more infrastructure. Keep an eye out for our demo facility results through the summer and into the end of the year. So that's us. Thanks so much for your time. I'm going to turn over to some questions here. Got one from Luca. Looking at your current pipelines of news, validation, financings, co-listing, early completion, do you feel the market is still underpricing the execution you've already delivered? I think we're on a double-edged sword here. Ultimately, very few investors that I've ever spoken to have heard of synthetic fuel. It's been around a long time. The idea that we could synthesize fuel from water, carbon, and energy and make it cheaper than fossil fuels is so radical that it's really tough for people to wrap their arms around. And so it is my job, like maybe my job more than anyone else's at our company, to introduce investors to this concept, show them that the technology's been demonstrated, and then slowly but surely, piece at a time, we are winning minds, hearts and minds one at a time. People are coming to our side of the conversation all the time, but to me, this represents a really tough boulder to push up the hill, introducing investors to an entire new sector, institutional investors, retail investors, and one day that boulder is going to start to catch momentum of its own. I think we're very early, and I think our stock price reflects that. But as we continue to deliver milestones, as we continue to build our reputation as a team that does what they say they're going to do, we do it on time, we do it on budget, ahead of time and under budget. And the good news that I have is that when we talk to specialists, when we talk to technically capable due diligence participants, large oil and gas companies, strategic investor prospects, despite the fact that we're young and despite the fact that we're early, they do understand this technology. They do understand where we are in the sort of technical advent of low-cost synthetic fuel supply chains. So block and tackle, stick with it. We're going to continue to move quickly. We're going to continue to meet investors, to the tune of 10, 20, 30 a week if I'm doing my job. And we're just going to make sure that we're there, we're loud, and we're early when the tipping point for social appreciation of the current state of synthetic fuel happens. With DTC from Jonathan, eligibility now in place, how big of an inflection do you expect from an increased US investor access and trading efficiency? Well, there could be 100x more retail investors in trading on the OTC as there are in Canada alone. So we definitely are looking more at US conferences, US road shows, US focused opportunities like the one that we're on right now to talk to more US investors. And I think US investors are also uniquely excitable when they hear about new technologies, when they hear about incremental proof points from small companies. They understand the value of developing this technology, owning the IP in US-based companies. And so we have found sort of an early start. It has been pretty early. We just got our DTC eligibility a few weeks ago. So keep an eye on the OTC component of our stock, and we're going to be doing a lot of work to increase our awareness and get out and meet as many US investors, retail and institutions as we can. From Leslie, how does appointing experienced nuclear and mega project talent to your advisory bench help you move faster on future multi-hundred megawatt sites? Man, mega project statistics in terms of delivering on time and on budget are scary ugly. especially when they're politically oriented. The private sector has a bit of a better track record here. But if you want to build a new airport or a new bridge or a new opera house, the track record of delivering those things on time and on budget is very, very difficult. Most go over budget, sometimes astronomically over budget. And so how do we mitigate that risk? Syntholene has an executive team that's done a lot of complex construction projects and deployed many hundreds of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure on time and on budget. But nonetheless, continuing to add high caliber operators that have done it before, that have delivered substantial infrastructure on time and on budget, that's kind of one of the key unlocks to mitigating the risk of cost overruns. The other key unlock is modularity. And that's something Syntholene does really well. We're not trying to build one demo facility, then a totally different first commercial facility, then a totally different large-scale industrial facility over the course of the next few years. We want to build one increment that we can then replicate. Build it time and again, very similar. There'll be iterations in the technology and sort of minor nudges, but we're going to continue to replicate a stamp that we can do time and again. And that really comes all the way down to the smallest possible increment of the wafer of the electrolyzer. So that modular construction is really important in mitigating those risks. And man, how to make your job easy on trying to do big, ambitious things, find people that have done it before. George asks, we're planning a site visit in June. What should investors be watching for on the ground that won't show up in a press release? Well, the aesthetic of the site is really strong. The tie-ins, the proximity to large-scale geothermal assets and infrastructure, the proximity to the port. I think the whites of the eyes of the operators, you can't really get a full sense just from reading our press releases until you meet our team. You realize how hell-bent these people are. Beyond their own financial reward of the equity that they own, they've committed their lives to wanting to make synthetic fuel a practical reality and see it effectively substitute for fossil fuels. And so when I get to spend time with my team, which I do every day, I'm just reminded of how essential this is to the future of the human civilization that we want to live in, and having contributors, stakeholders, team members, external stakeholders that are all sharing in that vision. It's substantially empowering to me. And I think any investor that attended that site meeting, hit me up. You want to come to Iceland for the 22nd? Come see what we do and come see who we are. We'd love to have you out there. Tom asks, how meaningful is it that you finished the Husavik demo plant 6 months ahead of schedule? To me, this is a critical demonstration of what we can do when we set our minds to it. It's a function of a very thorough and exceptionally detailed planning process that is long and arduous, and we really take our time in those relatively low-cost planning elements of building a project, and then a short and fast lightning strike of a construction project. That's how we want to build every piece of infrastructure we ever build. And so this demo facility, being able to accomplish it ahead of schedule, it just is another piece of incremental proof that we mean business. And we're not just lab guys. We're not just guys with an idea. We're people that have built infrastructure before, and we want to build a reputation that we build infrastructure while governing capital really effectively. Airlines and OEMs. John asks, I've got 1 minute here. What are we hearing from airlines and OEMs now that we're close to producing real world data instead of just models and projections? This demo facility was pointed to us by multiple industrial investors, oil and gas companies. We went to those guys first and we said, what do you need to see to mitigate your own risk profile and justify collaboration on larger scale commercial infrastructure? There's no way around it that we're going to need to project finance tens, hundreds of millions worth of dollars. And there's only a handful of people that can do that in the world for industrial infrastructure and infrastructure that's analogous to petroleum infrastructure. And they said, show us a real world demo, plug it into a real world energy source, make it work with similar efficiencies that you can get in the lab. And when you do that, that is the de-risking point that we're going to take a strong interest. So it's on us to deliver those relationships, but at least we know that they told us this is what they need to see. OTC markets, thank you so much for your time. Such a pleasure to spend time with you. Check us out, SYNTF. We'd love to call you investors. Book a meeting with me if you want a deeper dive. And with that, I'll bid you adieu. The future of synthetic fuel is bright.